Last Sunday we talked about God's great banquet invited. Today we're talking about God's great wedding. Be watchful. Keep watch. God's wedding banquet. Keep watch. And even though these are different parables, they sort of have the same focus. God's great banquet focus on us receiving God's invitation, being open to God's invitation to come to his great banquet, to be with him in heaven, his invitation to us. But God's wedding banquet is us being ready, keeping watch for that day when eternity comes calling for us. See, they come from just different angles, but they're both focused on the same thing: life beyond this life. What will be taking place? How will we get ready for it? What will it involve? And because eternity will come for you one day, and eternity will come for me one day, I think the reality is we need to ask ourselves the question, are you living for eternity? Are you living for today, or are you living for eternity? Are you living for today, or are you living for eternity? Because depending on how you answer that question will determine the life you live now. If you are living for today, you will be very concerned about how good you look, how beautiful you are, how you're coming across to other people. If you are living for eternity, you'll be more concerned about the spiritual depth of your soul. If you're living for today, you'll be concerned, you live life for the portfolio. But if you're living life for eternity, you'll be living life to have riches in heaven. If you live life for today, you'll live for yourself, to meet your needs, self-gratification, who you are and what you're about. But if you're living for eternity like Jesus, you will spend giving your life away to others. If you live for today, you'll only be concerned about the things of today. But if you're living for eternity, you'll be far more concerned about what your life will be like forever. Are you living for today, or are you living for eternity? But it's hard to live life for eternity when today is always so much in your face today. Today we have the pressures. Today we have challenges that face us. Today we have the pains. Today we have life as we're living it, and it's hard to focus our thoughts on eternity when today is so much a part of who we are today. So Jesus gives us this parable, this story, to help us focus our attention, our thoughts, our minds, to help us live for eternity. Because Jesus wants us to be in heaven with him for eternity. He says to prepare, to focus on eternity, we need to be watching for him. We need to watch for him. And Jesus says, at the time, the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were wise. The foolish ones took their lamps, but did not take any oil with them. The wise, however, took oil in jars along with their lamps. The bridegroom was a long time in coming, and they all became drowsy and fell asleep. You know, the wedding was always a big deal in the area. And the 10 virgins were like the 10 bridesmaids. And their purpose was to get the bride ready for the big wedding day, to help her make her beautiful, her dress, her hair, her flowers, all these things, preparing for her big wedding day, getting ready for the bridegroom. And they would have their big wedding, and after the wedding, people would escort them from the place they were married to their home where they would be living. And they would take the longest route possible through the streets of the village, of the town, so that they could get as many well wishes from the people of the town as they walked by them. And when they finally arrived at their home, they wouldn't take a honeymoon. Honeymoons were not a thing back then. They would go to their home, and for 7 days, for a week, they would have open house. And they would invite all the friends, all the people to come and to share with this very special week with them. Just a wonderful time, a celebration of come together of two lives. And you know, weddings are so neat. And I love doing weddings as a pastor. But nothing, absolutely nothing could happen until the bridegroom showed up. It all depended. The bride was there with her bridesmaids. They were preparing. She was beautiful. She was ready. Everything was set. Everything was prepared. But nothing could take place until the bridegroom showed up. And so the bride and her bridesmaids were always on the lookout for the bridegroom to come. And Jesus is the bridegroom. And there's nothing worse we can be doing than not expecting Jesus to show up in our world, in our lives. We need to always be watching and looking for Jesus to become a part of who we are and where we live in this crazy, mixed up world we live in. And man, it is a very interesting times we live in, and some of the things we keep reading. I read recently that 1 out of 3. Now, how many of you own pets? How many of you have pets? You pet person, pets. Anyone have pets? Okay. I read a survey recently. 1 out of 3 people, when they go on vacation, they call back. They want to talk to their pet on their phone while they're on vacation. All right, 1 out of 3. Okay, I'm not one of them. Okay, I don't do that. But Carol has a pet, and I have a pet because Carol, we're married. But 1 out of 3 people call back because they want to talk to their pets. Right? 1 out of 4 people believe that we have extraterrestrials have already landed on Earth and exist here. All right? We live in the kind of world where an executive went on vacation and he wrote back to his folks and said, hey, the scenery is beautiful. I wish you were here. Then he inadvertently wrote back to his wife and said, the scenery is here. I wish you were beautiful. A crazy, mixed up world we live in, and funny things happen and stuff takes place. And we need to be looking for Jesus to step in the loneliness and the confusion and the heartbreak and the brokenness of all of humanity. Need to keep watch for Jesus to come into our world, but especially into our lives. But living for eternity involves much more than just keeping watch for Jesus to come. Not only should we watch for him to come, we must be ready for when he does come. For at midnight, the cry rang out, here's the bridegroom, come out to meet him. Then all the virgins woke up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish ones said to the wise ones, give us some of your oil, our lamps are going out. No, they replied, there may not be enough for both us and you. Instead, go to those who sell oil and buy some for yourselves. But while they were on their way to buy the oil, the bridegroom arrived. You see, this was a unique custom, tradition they had at that time, that no one knew when the bridegroom was going to show up. Now, if we did that in our day and age, you know, there's a time set, weddings would start right on time, here we go. The bridegroom doesn't show up. That's too bad, so sad. The bride leaves. Weddings shut down. But back then, the custom was that part of their tradition is they never knew when the bridegroom was going to show up. The bride was ready. Her bridesmaids were ready. Everything was set. But he could come that day, that afternoon, that night, the next day, the next afternoon, the next night. In fact, the bridegrooms made it almost like a game to try to catch the bride and the bridesmaids sleeping. So they would often come in the middle of the night. Boy, how fun would that be if you're the bride and the bridesmaids, huh? No fun at all. A lot of stress going on. But when he finally decided to show up, trying to catch the brides and the bridesmaids sleeping, he would send someone ahead of him to call out, here's the bridegroom, come out to meet him. And then everything would begin. And they all woke up. They all trimmed their lamps. And the lamps they used at the time were torches. They were torches. They were like sticks. And on the sticks, they would wrap cloth. And on the cloth, they would sort of saturate with olive oil. And they would light their torches and keep their torches lit in anticipation of the bridegroom coming, especially at night. But because the bridegroom took so long in coming, the torches has basically burned up all the oil that's in them. They get tired, they fall asleep, and then he comes. And they wake up. And the problem with the foolish virgins, the foolish bridesmaids, is the fact that they were not prepared. They were not prepared. They had enough oil on their torches, and they had those set, but they didn't bring extra just in case the bridegroom decided to play his little game and show up really, really late at night. And so they were foolish for not being prepared, but they were even, but notice this, how foolish they really were. Because then, in the middle of the night, at midnight, now think about this, Middle East, 2,000 years ago, middle of the night, all the stores close when the sun goes down. No 24-hour Walmart, nothing like that. They all go out and the foolish virgins try to go out and buy some oil. And guess what? No one is selling olive oil in the middle of the night. Everybody's gone to bed. This is just not happening. But that's how foolish they were, and that's how foolish they looked, at trying to purchase something that could not be purchased then. But the wise virgins, the wise bridesmaids, they were thinking ahead of time. Well, what if he doesn't come? Because we know this is a tradition. We know this is sort of what things happen. What if he waits a day, waits till the middle of the night? We're going to have a little extra oil. We're going to be ready. We're going to be prepared for whenever the bridegroom comes. And he's not going to catch us because we're going to be set and waiting for him. See, not only do we need to be watching for Jesus to come, we need to be prepared for Jesus to come. And one day the Bible tells us that Jesus is going to come for all creation. And eternity is going to begin for all creation. But sometimes and often, eternity comes unexpectedly into each of our lives. Oh, John, can you go back one on the slide? To one prior to that, me and my friend. Let's see, we get this. Okay. That's me on the right. That's 1st Army Headquarters, Rock Island, northwest of here. The man on my left, Chaplain Brian Curry, a godly man, chaplain, great father, great husband, followed God, had given his life to serve God in the military as a chaplain. He was active duty. His entire time he'd been active duty Army. I was a reservist. This picture was taken on May 4th, 2018. I was up there and Brian was telling me about his summer he had planned for him and his family. They were going to go to Hawaii. They'd never been to Hawaii. And he was telling me all the plans that he had made and all the reservations and whatever he had set up and where they would be staying and his children. He said he couldn't wait to see the smiles of his daughters as they went and enjoyed that time together. And his wife was so happy about it. And I was up there for the whole week doing the drill, and we took our PT test. Push-ups, sit-ups, and a 2-mile run. And as Brian and I always did, we were each of us busting into the other. I was challenging him to do more push-ups. I was getting down there. Come on, Brian, you can do it. Come on, do more and more. And he was getting in my face, and we were trying to push each other and run faster, do more, and got through the PT test. And he passed, I passed. We felt good about it. And went back home. Got a call on May 24th. Thursday. Brian had finished work for that day, went home to have dinner that evening. Brian told his wife, I feel a bit tired. I'm going to lay down and take a nap. When dinner was finally ready, his wife went in to wake him up. Brian was dead. He had died of a massive heart attack. No warning, no indication. Just taken, done well on the PT test. His wife felt guilty because, well, if I just been in there, maybe things would have been different. The doctors told her it wouldn't matter if she was in the room or not when he had his heart attack. It was such a huge heart attack. There's nothing that she could have done. And on that Thursday afternoon, May 24, 2018, Brian Curry stepped out into his eternity. The good news is that Brian was ready for the eternity he stepped out into. To live for eternity, we must be vigilant and watch for Jesus to come. We must be ready for Jesus to come so that we can celebrate with Jesus when he does come. And the virgins who were ready went in with him to the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later the others also came. Sir, sir, they said, open the door for us. But he replied, I tell you the truth, I don't know you. Therefore, keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour. Keep watch. The tragedy of the foolish virgin is that they missed out on the joy of this wedding banquet. There's no greater joy and gladness than being in the presence of all the celebration and happiness of come together. We all been to parties and celebrations that are just sort of formal, and you go through the motions, and they're very controlled and very just do this and do that and etiquette and follow the example, and we're all sort of there, and it's just not boring and not very interesting and not very fun. But this wedding banquet is different. This wedding banquet, the life of the party is Jesus who is now alive. It's the resurrected, returned bridegroom Jesus who has come to take his creation to his people home to be with him. It's like that one preacher once prayed, he said, Dear God, let something happen today in this space that is not in our bulletin. And for us in our space, in our lives, to allow God to take control of us, to take our lives, to set us free, to be his people, to be his children, and celebrate with him. Because we kept watch, we were ready. And then we went with him to celebrate. Once we're ushered into the bridegroom's presence, will never want the party to end. And the good news, it never will. It will last forever and ever and ever. Therefore, watch, be ready, be prepared, and celebrate. And today is Decision Sunday. This is the moment in the service as your pastor, as your leader, I would be remiss if I did not do everything I could possibly do, and we did not do everything we could possibly do to make sure each and every one of you is ready. Eternity's coming. For us, some will be sooner, some of us going to be later, but it's going to come for us. It's going to come for me, it's going to come for you. Wouldn't it be a shame if you weren't ready? But Jesus says you can be ready. You can make that decision. I've given you free will. I've given you the choice. In your head and your heart, you can make that decision, begin to follow me, to give your life to me. And he says you do this by confessing the sins of your past, to walk away from who you were, to receive forgiveness in your present, to be able to follow Jesus into your future. Confess the sins of the past, receive forgiveness in your present, walk with Jesus into your future. Follow Jesus this day and the next day and the next day. And one day step out with him into the eternity he has set aside for you. Or maybe today is your day of rededication. You've already made the decision to follow Jesus, but not with the passion you need to have, not with the fervor that needs to be yours. You want to follow Jesus hard and closely. You want to be all in because you know he was all in for you, and you feel now you want to be all in for him. Just to come forward and take my hand and say, Scott, pray with me. Pray with me. Or maybe you feel led to join with our community, our tribe, our church family, to begin the process of membership. To say, Scott, I've made my profession of faith. I've been baptized. I feel I want to begin the process of membership, of seeing what it takes to become a member of the best community, the Temple Baptist Church of Champaign, Illinois. Become part of our family and serve Jesus here. To begin to follow him now. I'm just asking you if you would to bow your heads and close your eyes. The decision on this Decision Sunday to begin to follow Jesus, to come forward, take my hand, ask Jesus to your heart, confess, receive your future, rededication, membership. As Carol plays, I'll just be standing here. I can't make your decision for you. God has decided he will not make the decision for you. Only you can decide. To decide to get ready, to be ready for eternity.